In the heart of Vero Beach, Florida, a young nurse with a radiant smile and endless compassion disappeared without a trace. Diana Duve's life was full of promise until the man she trusted most shattered it in an act of unspeakable violence. As secrets unraveled, the dark truth behind her murder shocked an entire community and left the world asking, how could love turn into such a horrific betrayal? This is the haunting story of Diana Duve, a tale of trust, control, and the relentless pursuit of justice.
On June 19, 2014, Diana Duve, a 26-year-old nurse, spent an evening with friends at a local bar in Vero Beach, Florida. Around 1:30 a.m., she left with her boyfriend, Michael Jones, a man whose past was darker than anyone knew. Witnesses later recounted that Diana appeared uneasy during the night, with Jones displaying controlling behavior. Despite the concerns of those around her, no one foresaw the chilling events that would follow. The next morning, Diana's mother, Lena Andrews, grew alarmed when she didn't hear from her daughter, an unusual occurrence given their close bond. At 1:45 a.m., Lena had received a vague text from Diana, "I won't be home," which was unlike her normal communication. By midday on June 20th, when Diana failed to respond to calls and texts, Lena contacted the Vero Beach Police Department to report her missing. The investigation began almost immediately, as friends and family emphasized that Diana was reliable and responsible. Police soon focused on Michael Jones, a 32-year-old wealth manager, as he was the last person seen with Diana. Officers visited his apartment but were met with silence when they knocked on his door. Obtaining a search warrant, investigators entered Jones's apartment and discovered troubling signs of a struggle. Broken items, bloodstains, and disturbed furniture painted a grim picture of what might have happened. As the hours passed, authorities worked tirelessly to track Jones's movements. Using cell phone data, they located him at a Hampton Inn in Fort Pierce, Florida, about 15 miles away. Jones was arrested on June 21st but refused to cooperate, giving police no information about Diana's whereabouts. His silence only deepened the growing fears of her family and friends. Later that same day, police made a heart-wrenching discovery. Diana's car, a Nissan Altima, was found abandoned in a Publix parking lot in Melbourne, Florida, 30 miles north of Vero Beach. Inside the trunk of the car lay Diana's lifeless body. The medical examiner later confirmed that she had been strangled, her life violently taken in a brutal act of control and rage. The news devastated the community, who had held on to hope for Diana's safe return. Her family, shattered by the loss, demanded answers about what led to her tragic fate. Forensic evidence and the discovery of Diana's body solidified the case against Michael Jones. He was charged with first-degree murder, setting the stage for a trial that would reveal disturbing truths. Diana and Michael had been in an on-again, off-again relationship since February 2014, while the relationship began with promise. Friends noticed red flags as Jones's behavior became increasingly controlling. Unbeknownst to Diana, Jones had a troubling criminal past, including charges of aggravated stalking. This history was kept hidden from her, allowing him to manipulate her trust. Surveillance footage from the night of June 19th showed Diana and Jones leaving the bar together. Hours later, cameras captured Jones returning to his apartment alone, carrying what appeared to be a large object wrapped in a blanket. Investigators uncovered that Jones had used Diana's credit cards after her disappearance. The transactions, along with purchases of cleaning supplies, pointed to a calculated attempt to cover up his crime. Colleagues at PNC Bank described Jones as charismatic but noted inconsistencies in his stories about his life. His carefully curated facade began to unravel under scrutiny, revealing a man with a pattern of deception. Friends of Diana recalled instances where Jones exhibited jealousy and possessiveness. These behaviors escalated in the weeks leading up to the murder, creating a volatile dynamic between the couple. The motive became clear as investigators pieced together evidence. Jones feared losing control over Diana. When she attempted to assert independence, his insecurities spiraled into violence. The discovery of blood evidence in Jones's apartment confirmed suspicions of foul play. Combined with his attempts to flee and conceal the crime, it painted a damning picture of his guilt. Further investigation revealed that Diana had considered ending the relationship. Friends shared that she expressed concerns about Jones's temper and controlling tendencies. Prosecutors argued that Jones's actions on the night of June 19th were deliberate. The evidence suggested premeditation, as Jones appeared to plan his steps to eliminate Diana and hide the crime. The community was shocked by the revelations of Jones's dark past and the violence he inflicted. Diana's story became a painful reminder of the dangers of abusive relationships. As the trial date approached, the prosecution built a case to ensure that justice would be served for Diana. Her family and friends vowed to honor her memory by seeking accountability. Michael Jones's trial began in October 2019, nearly 5 years after Diana's murder. The courtroom was packed with reporters, community members, and Diana's grieving family. Prosecutors laid out a compelling narrative supported by surveillance footage, forensic evidence, and emotional testimony from Diana's loved ones. The evidence painted Jones as a manipulative and dangerous man. The defense argued that Jones acted impulsively in a moment of rage, denying premeditation. They claimed that the murder was not planned but the result of a sudden argument. However, the prosecution countered with Jones's history of controlling behavior and evidence of his meticulous attempts to hide the crime. The jury was shown how Jones's actions were deliberate and calculated. Diana's mother and close friends gave emotional testimonies, highlighting the devastating impact of her loss. Their words brought the courtroom to tears, emphasizing the need for justice. In the aftermath, Diana's story became a symbol of the importance of recognizing and addressing domestic abuse. Her family created initiatives to educate others about the warning signs of controlling relationships. The community rallied around Diana's memory, organizing events and campaigns to support victims of abuse. Her story resonated as a call to action against domestic violence. Though Diana's life was tragically cut short, her legacy continues to inspire change. Her compassion as a nurse and her vibrant spirit are remembered by all who knew her. Michael Jones's conviction serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and intervention in abusive relationships. The case highlighted the need for stronger support systems for victims. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict. On November 4, 2019, Michael Jones was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced Jones to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Diana's family, the verdict was a measure of justice, though it could never replace their loss. Diana Duve's life and tragic death remain a powerful story of loss, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. Through her memory, her family continues to advocate for a safer world.
Okay, so today we're diving into this case, and it's while it's a rough one. It took Vero Beach, Florida, back in 2014.
Yeah.
The disappearance and murder of this 26-year-old nurse, Diana Duve. And we've got a lot to work with here. News articles, court documents, even some firsthand accounts from people who knew her. And honestly, putting this all together, it's like It's like reading a true crime novel,
Yeah.
But it's real. It's a real story with a very, very tragic ending.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those cases that grabs you right away. What gets me is just how fast it all went from like a missing person case to something way worse. It makes you think, even lives that seem totally normal can have these dark secrets hiding underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all started with a simple text message. It was 1:45 in the morning, June 19th, when Diana texted her mom, just said, "I won't be home." That's it. No other details, which was like completely out of character for her. And then nothing. Silence.
And that's when things get really scary. Those first few hours are crucial in a missing person case. And Diana's mom, Lena, she knew right away that something was wrong. I mean, that gut feeling a parent gets. Plus, Diana wasn't the type to just disappear. So Lena, she went straight to the police that same day.
Wow. And so the police, they immediately zero in on Michael Jones, Diana's boyfriend. He was the last person seen with her at this local bar. They go to his apartment to question him, but nobody answers. Red flag number one.
Oh, absolutely. In a missing person case, every minute counts. So any kind of delay like that, it's just agonizing. And Jones refusing to cooperate right off the bat, that throws up a huge red flag.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the police, they get a warrant for his apartment. And when they finally get inside, what they find is just horrifying. Signs of a struggle, furniture overturned, blood stains. It's like something out of a nightmare.
Oh, man. So while all of this is going down, they're trying to find Jones. Right?
Yeah.
And they finally track him down at a hotel miles away. Right. They arrest him, but he's not talking. Clams up completely, refuses to say anything about Diana.
It's like you can feel the tension ratcheting up every second that ticks by.
Yeah. And for Diana's family and friends, I mean, imagine that agonizing, not knowing if she's alive, hurt, being held somewhere.
It's unimaginable.
Then comes the news that just changes everything. They find Diana's car, abandoned in a parking lot.
Oh, no.
And in the trunk, they find her body. Cause of death, strangulation.
That is just devastating.
And as the investigation into Jones goes deeper, they start uncovering things. And let me tell you, it's chilling. This guy, he's a successful wealth manager, right? Seems totally normal on the surface, but he's hiding this past, a very dark past.
And that's a lesson right there, isn't it? It's so important to know who you're dealing with, especially in relationships. Can you imagine what Diana would have thought if she knew about Jones's past? He had prior charges for aggravated stalking.
Whoa, are you serious?
He was good at building trust, only to use it to manipulate and control people.
It's like he was living a double life.
Yeah.
And this whole tragedy just ripped the mask right off. And speaking of chilling, there's this surveillance footage from the bar. It shows Diana and Jones leaving together. But then, hours later, Jones comes back alone. And he's carrying this large thing wrapped in a blanket. I mean, come on. Doesn't that just send shivers down your spine?
It's definitely creepy, but what really gets to me is how methodical he was about it.
Right.
The surveillance footage, using Diana's credit cards, buying cleaning supplies. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. It was all calculated.
Right.
And the whole time, he's putting on this act of normalcy at work.
Yeah, I read about that.
Making up stories to tell his colleagues.
But he was playing a role.
Exactly. Jones was a master manipulator, even after committing such a horrible crime.
Even his colleagues at PNC Bank, where he worked, they said he was charismatic, but there was something about his stories that just felt off. Like he was trying too hard to be believable.
And then, as we start digging into their relationship, this really disturbing pattern starts to emerge. Diana's friends, they had noticed some red flags. Jones was possessive, jealous, controlling, and it was all getting worse in the weeks leading up to the murder.
It's classic abuser behavior, isn't it?
It is, slowly tightening the grip.
It's just heartbreaking to think about how trapped she must have felt. I mean, the one person who should have been her safe haven, her protector, he turned into her worst nightmare.
It's a tragedy on so many levels.
And the saddest part is Diana, she was starting to see those red flags herself. She was confiding in her friends about Jones's temper, how controlling he was being. She's even thinking about breaking up with him.
Oh, wow.
It's like she was finally trying to take back control of her life. And that's what set him off.
Yeah, that's a classic pattern in these kinds of cases. When the abuser feels like they're losing control, that's when things can get really dangerous. Diana's case is a tragic reminder that domestic violence, it doesn't always start with physical abuse.
Okay.
It can be this slow, insidious process of control and manipulation.
It's not always the black eyes and bruises, right?
Right, exactly.
It's the constant criticism, the isolation from friends and family, the threats.
Yeah.
All of it just wears a person down.
Until they feel completely trapped.
So After this horrific discovery, the arrest, the wait for justice begins. It took almost 5 years for the case to go to trial.
Wow, 5 years.
5 years of agony for Diana's family, just waiting for some kind of closure.
I can't even imagine.
The trial itself was this huge media circus.
I bet.
Reporters, the whole community, Diana's loved ones, everyone packed into the courtroom. They all wanted to see justice done.
Of course.
And the prosecution, they built a really strong case. I mean, they had mountains of evidence. The surveillance footage, the forensics from Jones's apartment, his credit card use, witness testimonies.
It sounds like they had him dead to rights.
But the most powerful evidence, it came from the people who knew and loved Diana.
Yeah, those are the voices that really hit home.
Hearing those stories in court, it must have been so incredibly difficult for them to relive all those painful memories.
I can't even imagine.
But their courage, their determination, it was crucial in bringing Diana's killer to justice.
Absolutely.
Those emotional testimonies from Diana's mother, her friends, they painted this picture of who Diana really was.
It's so important to remember the victim in all of this.
She was this vibrant, caring soul, a dedicated nurse who touched so many lives.
Yeah.
Her loss was devastating to everyone who knew her.
And that's something that often gets lost in these cases, isn't it? The ripple effect of the victim's absence. The void left behind in the lives of their loved ones.
It's true.
Those testimonies, they humanized Diana. They reminded everyone that this wasn't just a case. It was about a real person, a life tragically cut short.
And, the defense, they tried to argue that the murder was a crime of passion, an impulsive act in a moment of rage.
But that doesn't really hold up, does it?
No, not at all. The prosecution shut that argument down pretty quickly. They pointed to Jones's history of control, his meticulous attempts to cover up the crime, his flight from the scene.
Right.
It all pointed to premeditation, a calculated act of violence.
It sounds like they had a very clear picture of what happened.
And the jury? They saw through Jones's act. After weeks of testimony and deliberations, they reached a unanimous verdict, guilty of first-degree murder.
Wow.
It was a powerful moment, a validation of all the efforts to bring Diana's killer to justice.
I can only imagine the relief her family must have felt.
And in November 2019, almost 5 years after Diana's life was stolen, Michael Jones was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Wow.
It wasn't a perfect victory. Nothing could bring Diana back. But it offered a sense of closure for her loved ones.
And hopefully some peace.
And it sent a clear message that domestic violence will not be tolerated.
That's so important.
It was a step towards accountability.
But Diana's story doesn't end there.
What do you mean? What's really inspiring is how her loved ones, they channeled their grief into something positive. They established foundations and initiatives in her memory,
Really?
working tirelessly to prevent others from suffering the same fate.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Even after going through something so awful, they found a way to turn their pain into something positive. They could have easily just, shut down. But instead, they chose to fight for others.
That takes incredible strength.
It really does. It's a testament to how much Diana meant to them. And it shows how important it is to address this issue. Domestic violence, it's often hidden, kept in the shadows. People are afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame and silence surrounding it.
Exactly. But Diana's story, it shines a light on this dark reality.
Wow.
It reminds us that this can happen to anyone.
Anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't matter your age, your social status, your education level.
It really doesn't.
And you think about Jones, this successful, charming guy, wealth manager.
Right.
It just goes to show that abusers can be anyone.
They're often masters of disguise.
Exactly. It's a reminder to always be aware of the signs. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is.
You always hear people say that.
Yeah, and it's true.
It's so important to be able to recognize those red flags.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, the possessiveness, the controlling behavior, the isolation tactics.
Yeah,
Catching it early can be life-saving.
absolutely.
And if you're worried about someone, reach out, even if they don't want to admit they're in trouble.
Sure.
Just offering support,
Yeah.
letting them know they're not alone, that can make all the difference.
This whole deep dive, it's really been eye-opening for me. It's easy to get caught up in the true crime part of it, the investigation, the mystery.
Right.
But Diana's case, it's a stark reminder that these aren't just stories. These are real lives, real families shattered by violence.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about how we can prevent this from happening in the first place.
Exactly. It's not enough to just solve crimes after they've happened. We need to focus on prevention.
And Diana's loved ones, they're doing amazing work with the foundations and initiatives they've set up.
Tell me more about that.
They're raising awareness educating communities, providing resources to victims.
Oh, that's incredible.
They're turning this tragedy into a force for change.
So powerful.
So it makes you think, what can we do? As listeners, we've learned about Diana's story, the warning signs, the impact of domestic violence. But how do we take this knowledge and do something with it?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Talk about this issue with your friends, your family, your colleagues.
Yeah.
Share information about domestic violence. Support organizations that are helping victims.
Right.
And if you see something that seems off, don't ignore it.
Trust your gut.
Exactly.
Reach out, offer support.
Let them know they're not alone.
Even a small act of kindness can make a difference.
Absolutely. Breaking the silence is crucial.
Yeah.
Silence only protects the abuser. By speaking out, we empower victims and create a culture where domestic violence is no longer tolerated.
That's a great point. This deep dive into Diana's case has been really tough.
Yeah.
But also incredibly inspiring. It's a story of loss, but also of resilience, of love that goes beyond even the darkest times. And it leaves us with this powerful message. We all have a role to play in ending domestic violence.
We do.
By being informed, being vigilant, and being supportive, we can create a world where everyone feels safe and loved. Loved is